Hi everyone, we've got another Purple Hibiscus past question here, another extract question. This one is from March 2023. And the reason we wanted to look at this one is the wording of the question is slightly different from what we used to, but the approach is pretty much the same. Remember, you're only going to have about 5 minutes, 6 minutes to read the extract, and then obviously you need to get writing. This is a slightly longer extract. But you can see here the question is, to what extent do you think that Adichie makes this a satisfying ending? Of course, you're going to want to go to the question first because you want to be answering the question throughout, because that's what the examiners want to see. So to what extent is getting you to evaluate. So I tried to think of some alternative phrases to use. How much, how effective, and in what ways? I mean, in essence, you're still looking at the techniques that Adichie uses. You're just expected to give a little bit of a twist and say, is it effective or not? I think it is quite an effective ending. It does tie together the various elements of the novel fairly well. And I think it is inviting you in to look at some of those wider things in the novel, those wider themes, concerns, etc. Satisfying ending, satisfactory, effective. And you could probably come up with some more. So let's have a look at the annotations that we managed in the few minutes that we had. This cell has many interesting characters, Jaja says. He spoons the rice into his mouth as quickly as he can. His cheeks bulge as though he stuffed them with whole unripe guavas. Now, we know that actually Jaja's about to be released from jail. We know the wider context, and it's important here to demonstrate that you know this to the examiner. That this is because the reason he's in jail, of course, is he took the blame for poisoning Papa Eugene and prevented and saved his mum from spending the time in jail herself. Of course, she is the one who did the poisoning to protect her family. Interesting characters is a euphemism. You know, they're individuals who are in the jail after all. As quickly as he can suggests that he's desperately hungry, that he's starved. So we're sort of doing a bit of interpretation. As though he has stuffed them with whole unripe guavas. Okay, it is a kind of a simile, isn't it? I mean, out of prison, Jaja, not to a different cell, I say. He stops chewing and stares at me silently with those eyes that have hardened a little. Every month he has spent here, now they look like the bark of a palm tree, unyielding. I even wonder if we ever really had an Asuzu Anya, a language of the eyes, or if I imagined it at all. So the fact his eyes have hardened, this is the consequences of spending time in jail around criminals, and he has to do a lot of growing up and become a man. You've got the simile here, which we might want to unpack. And any mention of eyes in the novel is important, as we know, because we know about the motif of the eyes, and you know the fact that Kambili and Jaja have to use their eyes, and Mama have to use their eyes to communicate with one another, because they don't speak in the house when Papa Eugene's around for fear that he's going to lash out at them. You'll be out of here next week, I say. You're coming home next week. So look at the repetition. It's almost as though he's not going to be able to understand this because he's so used to spending time in prison. I want to hold his hand, but I know he will shake it free. His eyes are too full of guilt to really see me. So again, there seems to be something important here about the eyes. We're probably going to want to devote a bit of time in the paragraph to that, to see his reflection in my eyes, the reflection of my hero, the brother who tried always to protect me the best he could. He will never think that he did enough. He will never understand that I do not think he should have done more. Again, repetition. So it's looking like repetition is something we're going to want to unpack, maybe in a paragraph on its own. You are not eating, Mama says. Jaja picks up the spoon and starts to wolf the rice down again. Notice we're in present tense. Starts to wolf, you are eating, which creates a sense of immediacy about this, doesn't it? It's almost like reported speech, but in the present tense. Again, that's something to create an effect on the reader, isn't it? The verb here, wolf, suggests that he's animalistic and ravenous, the fact that he is being almost starved in jail. Silence hangs over us, but it's a different kind of silence, one that lets me breathe. I have nightmares about the other kind of silence of when Papa was alive. So silence, of course, is one of the consequences earlier in the novel of Papa Eugene's violence, that they don't feel that they can speak to one another. It's why they have to communicate using their eyes. But this silence is more comfortable now, knowing that Papa is no longer around, that they are going to be soon reunited as a family, and that there's going to be a kind of contentedness and certain sense of happiness about that. In my nightmares, it mixes with shame and grief and so many other things that I cannot name. So these are the consequences of violence, the trauma that Cambili is living with, and forms blue tongues of fire. That's a kind of a metaphor which we may want to unpack. That rest above my head like Pentecost until I wake up screaming and sweating. I have not told Jaja that I offer masses for Papa every Sunday. So she still, despite the violence and the abuse, still thinks about him. That I want to see him in my dreams. That I want it so much. You've got the repetition of want. I sometimes make my own dreams when I'm neither asleep nor awake. I see Papa, he reaches out to hug me. I reach out too, but our bodies never touch before something jerks me up and I realize that I cannot control even the dreams that I have made. So there's some quite deep things going on here, some reflections. The fact that they never touch might be because of the trauma, that emotionally there's a distance between them. There is so much that is still silent between Jaja and me. So this silence motif that keeps being repeated is something that we might want to unpack, maybe a paragraph in itself. Perhaps we will talk more with time, or perhaps we never will be able to say it all. To clothe things in words, things have long been naked. So almost kind of covering up this metaphor, which again we might want to unpack. You did not tie your scarf well, Jaja says to Mama. I stare in amazement. Jaja has never noticed what anybody wears. Mama hastily unties and reties her scarf, and this time she knots it twice and tight at the back of her head. So has he become almost like the father figure? Has he taken over from Papa Eugene, or will he in the future? Time is up. The guard comes in the room. Jaja says a brief, distant K.O.D., not making eye contact with either of us before he lets the guard lead him away. There's the eye contact thing again. We should go to Nsuka when Jaja comes out, I say to Mama. As we walk out the room, I can talk about the future now. So there's change, there's hope for the future. If we're looking at to what extent the fact that it ends, all of this trauma is ending on what seems to be a positive note, maybe is seen as a good ending to what is quite a bleak novel in some ways. Mama shrugs and says nothing. She is walking slowly. Her limp has become more noticeable, her body moving sideways with each step. We are close to the car when she turns to me and says, "Thank you, Nne." It is one of the few times in the past 3 years that she has spoken without being first spoken to. I do not want to think about why she is thanking me or what it means. I only know that all of a sudden I no longer smell the damp and urine of the prison yard. So she's getting older, isn't she? The last 3 years must have taken their toll on Mama, emotionally and physically. And we're seeing a change. Jaja is coming father figure. Is it now the role reversal that Cambili is going to be looking after Mama? She's become the kind of mother figure, which might be something interesting that you might want to explore in relation to the question to what extent we get a sense that things are going to be changing for the better. This is a Bildungsroman. It's about the development and the growing up of Cambili, and here she has reached the stage that she is perhaps going to be looking after her mother. We will take Jaja to Nsuka first. Notice that she is telling Mama what's going to happen. And then we'll go to America to visit Auntie Afwoma, I say. We'll plant new orange trees in Aber when we come back, and Jaja will plant purple hibiscus too. Okay, so we're looking at the future, positive. We know, because we've read the novel and we understand the symbolism of the purple hibiscus, is about future, rebirth, hope. And I'll plant Ixiora so we can suck the juices of flowers. I am laughing, positive. I reach out and place my arm around Mama's shoulder, and she leans towards me and smiles. Above, clouds like dyed cotton wool hang low. Simile, is there something to unpack there? So low, repetition, I feel I can reach out and squeeze the moisture from them. The new rains will come down soon. Now, rain is usually significant, and in this case, we want to be looking at the idea of rain symbolizing renewal, rebirth. I think I put it at the top somewhere. The idea of washing away the sin, like a baptism, the new shoots, how rain is important for new growth for plants. And maybe it's a way of washing away the past, that things are going to be different now, and that there's a positive future now that Papa Eugene has gone, that that Jaja is about to be released from jail. But of course, there is also that sort of tinge of sadness that Judge is always going to be different after what he's witnessed in prison. Mama is going to be older and affected by having gone through this as well. And obviously, there's the guilt of having killed Papa Eugene. And Cambili obviously is affected by the trauma, and that's being suggested in this extract as well. So there's quite a lot to unpack. But I think if you keep the focus on the question and you keep a focus on the techniques that Adichie is using in this extract, then you're not going to go too far wrong. Okay, hopefully that's been helpful. Please do get in touch if you've got any questions. Drop some questions in the comments, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time on the channel. You have a really good day, everyone. Bye-bye.